I used to make the occasional video about Wattpad stories on this channel, like before anybody was really watching my videos, and okay. All right. Yeah, I used to make the occasional Wattpad video, but I haven't in a while, partly because I used to make those videos with my sister, and she is like now kind of too embarrassed to come on the channel since I actually have subscribers. But secondly, because it's actually kind of hard for me to like find a really good story to talk about, like the bad boy and the tomboy. That doesn't happen every day. So I've had this idea for a while based on these types of videos I've seen here on YouTube where people will like watch the first and last episode of a TV show. And that's just fun because especially if you haven't seen a certain TV show, it can be really fun to see like how much it has escalated between the beginning and the end. I thought it might be a really good idea to do the exact same thing but with Wattpad stories. So I have curated a few stories that I'm hoping will yield a funny result if we read the first and last chapters. And by the way, I want to be clear that like I don't hate Wattpad. I don't hate the people who write on here. If anything, and I think I said this in my last couple Wattpad videos too, but like I find it really impressive that these people can write fully novel-length stories, often at really young ages, like, 14, 15. I feel like sometimes I'll read some that say in the author's note, it'll be like, oh, sorry, this book is bad. I wrote it when I was 11. And it's like, wow, you wrote an entire novel-length piece of writing at 11? So I don't want you to think that I'm like just here to like bully these probably children who wrote these stories. That's not the goal. I'm gonna poke fun, but I find it impressive that they did this at all, and I'm sure a lot of them have now grown up and don't necessarily take ownership of these works anymore. And this is also not an invitation to like go and bully these authors or seek out these stories and leave comments or whatever. I think that's a really shitty thing to do, actually. Right, so here I have a few stories in my library. I think I'm going to start off with this story, I May Be Famous, but They Don't Know That. I love a Wattpad story with a descriptive title. That's kind of a hallmark. And here's the summary. Sam Smith, yes, our main character is named Sam Smith, can't remember the days when she was considered part of the popular crowd. With frizzy hair and bulky glasses, her only friend is the nerdy and charming Will Larson, who she befriended freshman year. However, things start to get strange for Sam when the most popular guy at school, Chase Michaels, decides that he's interested in her. But Sam has a secret of her own, a secret she will do anything to protect. She is a famous actress, but they don't know that. I think this sounds pretty intriguing, and it says it's from 2011, which is interesting, and maybe explains why the main character is named Sam Smith. Like, I don't think Sam Smith was really very big at that time. One thing that interests me is the fact that the first few tags on this story are actress, cancer, and death. So I'm like, where's the cancer and death gonna come in? I wonder if we'll see, just reading the first and last chapters. Chapter 1. I yawn and roll over in my bed. I have absolutely no desire to get up for school today. It will be the same old routine as usual. Go to school, get ridiculed for being a nerd, and come home and do homework that I really didn't have time to do. Because my nerdy look is merely a disguise. I am really a famous actress. I am the one and only Samantha Gray. Of course no one at school knows that. If they did, they would probably attack me in the effort to get autographs or something like that, and my life was already too complicated to add fake friends into the mix. So she eats breakfast. Her mom made her an omelet, so that's really nice. Samantha, you need to eat your breakfast. You have a long day ahead of you. I grin. Today I have an interview on the Daniel Harris show about the new movie that I am in. At least I have something to look forward to get me through another unbearable day of school, I think grimly to myself. It's like, no one's forcing her to be undercover, I get that she, I'm sure, has her reasons for that, but like if she hates going to school so much and she hates her social status at school so much, like it would actually be very easy for her to change that. I quickly devour my omelet and follow my brother out to his Mustang. Sam, I think people would react differently than you think if they knew about you. I chuckle at his words. Chris, I think you are just sick of keeping my secret. I smile up at him. No, I'm just sick of all those uppity bitches picking on my sister. I know you want a normal high school experience, but I don't think you can classify being the laughingstock of the school as a normal high school experience. Again, she could change this situation if she wanted to. I laugh off what he said. I'm fine, really. I enjoy being able to know that in reality, I would win a popularity contest if they knew who I was. Okay, this is kind of weird, right? I feel like in teen fiction, when the main character is like kind of an outcast or a nerd, kind of the whole point is like that, you know, usually the morals of those stories is like popularity isn't everything, looks aren't everything. You know, the outcast can actually be someone who maybe has more like character than someone who is valued only for their popularity or their looks or whatever. But in this story, it's like she's comforted by the fact that if she were to reveal her identity, she would win a popularity contest. So it's like, I guess the moral is not that popularity isn't everything. I slipped my glasses onto the bridge of my nose and pulled my sleek blonde hair into a messy ponytail. Classic messy ponytail. How do I look? He rolls his eyes. Well, you ask me this every morning, and my answer is always the same. Nerdy but beautiful. Okay. He reaches out and smiles lovingly as he straightens my glasses. What would you ever do without me? He asks. Chris looks a lot like me. Straight blonde hair, magnificent deep blue eyes, and a smile that could melt a heart of steel. The way they're setting it up so far kind of feels like she's gonna fall in love with her brother. I hope that doesn't happen. Okay, she gets to school. She kind of does the classic, like, judging all the popular girls. She says, I know that all the fake blonde bimbos are complaining about how unfair it is that nerdy Sam Smith gets to ride in her cool brother's car. One thing that I like doing with these stories is, like, depending on what names the characters have, I like to imagine them as like a corresponding celebrity or fictional character with the same name. And in this case, it's really easy because their name is Sam Smith. And then she meets up with her best friend. When I successfully make it to my locker, a friendly voice calls, Sam, Sam. I glance up. Oh, hi, Will, my only friend, and best friend pulls me into a friendly hug. I'm gonna imagine him as Will from Stranger Things. Will is actually a really cute guy. His black hair contrasts sharply with his bright green eyes. I can do that in Photoshop. And his skin holds an even tanned tone. I am thankful that the popular girls haven't noticed how cute Will was or how muscly. If they had or ever did, they would try to take him away from me. If that happened, well then, I didn't think I could handle being nerdy Sam Smith anymore. You sounded so emotional, Will teases me. I smile gently. Yay, sorry about that. Not much sleep last night. He gives me an understanding look, then playfully plucks my glasses from my face. Classic. Okay, they're playing around with the glasses when suddenly a hand reaches out and takes the glasses from Will. I turn to the hand and am extremely surprised to see Chase Michaels, the most popular guy in the senior class and also my brother's best friend. Aw, she was asking so nicely. I think you ought to give these back now. He turns to me to give me my glasses. I duck my head to avoid eye contact. Thanks, I mumble. He doesn't reply as I take them, and by the time I have my glasses back on, he is gone. I glance at Will and I burst into laughter. Maybe you shouldn't take my glasses again, I suggest through my giggles. I don't know what's funny. Do you? Aw, are you afraid of Chase? When he doesn't reply, I start laughing even harder. I'm trying to think of who Chase can be. And to be honest with you, the only Chase I can think of is that guy from Zoe 101. So, little Sam got lucky today talking to Chase. Bet she has a crush now, someone behind me says, obviously loud enough for me to hear. I roll my eyes and don't acknowledge them. On my way to first period, someone trips me. Usually I am on guard about this kind of thing, but my unusual encounter with Chase earlier had thrown me off my game. All my books tumble to the floor along with my glasses, which I lost track of. I pull my books together, then collapse in a heap against the wall. Silent tears stream down my face. Is it a habit of yours to lose your glasses? Chase's voice makes me jump about a foot in the air. I wipe my tears away and look up at him. See, this reaction is weird to me because, like, in this same paragraph, she and her friend are just like joking around and she's kind of laughing things off. And then she like falls and drops her books and starts sobbing. I didn't notice his hand for a few moments, but then I realize he is trying to help me up. He settles on grabbing my arm and pulling me to my feet. I stand staring at him in confusion. We are alone in the hall now, seeing that the tardy bell had already rung. My hands are full, so he takes my glasses and slides them onto the bridge of my nose. You know, if you got contacts and a hair straightener, you would look a lot like Samantha Gray. Yeah. I blush and look down. Well, maybe I like looking like myself, is all I could think to say. Well, don't let those girls who try way too hard get you down. They are just jealous. You don't even have to try, and you are still beautiful. He turns and walks down the hall. I am stunned. Chase Michaels thinks I am beautiful? I walk slowly to class. thinking about what Chase, had just said. And that's the end of chapter 1. Pretty standard Wattpad fare, I would say. It's actually not terribly written. Like, I usually go into these stories kind of expecting, like, obvious typos and stuff, and there's not much of that. So it did say that she was revising it, so maybe it's been revised. But given that this was like a pretty normal first chapter, I'm really curious to see where we get in the last chapter. Especially because we still haven't heard anything about that cancer or death tag, so I want to see who died. Another thing here is almost all of these stories have epilogues. I don't know what it is, but like, it's a Wattpad thing. Like, every story has an epilogue. And so I wasn't sure initially if I should like skip to the final chapter, like numbered chapter, or if I should skip to the epilogue. But I'm thinking I'm gonna go to the last chapter, like before the epilogue. I think I want like the action, whatever the action is in the last chapter. So, skipping ahead to chapter 21, here we go. I stared at Mike in muted astonishment. Wait, you're my dad? Okay, this is what I wanted. Like, this is what I was looking for with this exercise. We have gone from, like, nothing, we don't even know who this Mike is, to now a final chapter reveal that our protagonist's father was not who she thought he was. Wait, you're my dad? I stammered. My cool facade evaporated as my heart raced and my mind went blank. Some part of me couldn't seem to comprehend this. Mike had always been so kind and understanding towards me. He was almost like a second father to me anyways, but now that it turned out he was my dad, but then the realization of how happy I was hit me like a ton of bricks. I threw myself at him and was engulfed in his warm hug. That's nice. Over the next hour, there was a lot of tears, mostly on my part, laughs, and explanations. Mike told me that when I first came to his agency, he didn't recognize me. That after I got a call about representation and my mom came with me to make a deal, he realized, but he had to hide it from me. Now, as I drove home, I was happier than I had been in weeks. I got home and went to bed, making sure to set my alarm for school the next day. Okay, so I guess Mike is like her agent or her manager or something? I forgot to fan cast Mike. I feel like we already have the Stranger Things theme. I'm gonna make it Mike from Stranger Things. Like 14-year-old Mike from Stranger Things is her dad. However, I also want to say I do think it's weird that that was such a revelation and now seemingly that is like it for the rest of the story. They don't bring him up again. When I woke up, I was ready and determined for the day to come. As I showered, I debated on how to go about what I planned to do. I made my way toward my drab school clothes closet and stopped short. If I was going to pull this off, I would need to pull out all the stops. I picked out a cute pair of skinny jeans and an off-the-shoulder red top. This time last month, I would have never worn that to school, especially the red. It drew too much attention to me. So has it only been a month? Wow. As I curled my hair, I debated what to say. In the end, I decided that I would just go with whatever happened. My heart was racing in my chest. "You can do this, Sam," I muttered quietly. As an afterthought, I quickly applied a coat of red lipstick, then smiled at myself in the mirror. I definitely no longer looked like Sam Smith. This is so funny. I glanced over at my dresser and caught sight of the chunky glasses that used to dominate my face. Frowning slightly, I walked to my dresser and picked them up. Chris had helped me pick them out freshman year, and he thought I was being foolish. I was sad now that I realized it had taken Chris's death for me to see how dumb I was being. Okay, so Chris died. Her brother died. Damn. I kept the glasses in my hands as I made my way out to the car. They sat lightly on the passenger seat of my car, and as I backed out, I picked them up and clung to this one last piece of my final life again. I think maybe she means former life. Then I tossed them in the garbage can that was waiting on the curb. Okay, so Sam Smith is no more. She is Samantha Gray. Is Samantha Gray not the name of, like, an adult film star? Am I getting that wrong? It's somebody with the last name Gray. When I pulled into school, my heart was racing faster than it ever had at auditions or even premieres. Heads turned as I parked my sleek car in Chris's old spot, but for some reason my hand couldn't open up my door. No matter how many times I commanded it to do so, it just stayed limply on the handle, overridden with fear. That's when I spotted Chase in the crowd of onlookers. He looked like hell. His hair was longer and messier than I had ever seen it. His clothes were rumpled and out of order, but the thing that struck me the most was his eyes. They were still the same color, but they held more sadness and regret than I had ever seen anyone have. I should hope they're the same color. Like, that shouldn't change. Chase was the reason I got out of my car. I finally realized how much he meant to me. In some ways, he was the last connection I had to Chris, and I would not lose him. As I climbed from my car, murmurs rippled through the crowd. They all wondered who I was and why I was here. I think it's Samantha Gray. That's what I would think. I would say, oh, it's actress Samantha Gray. But Chase knew. He brushed his shaggy hair out of his eyes, and the tiniest, faintest of smiles touched his lips. Then he was gone. I was left with an expectant crowd watching me with curious eyes, so I began to speak. I'm sure you are... Wait, so she came to school in the morning, and just like a crowd gathered? Yeah, she just showed up to school, a crowd gathered, and now she's like giving a speech to this crowd of people who are seemingly expecting her to give a speech. I'm sure you are all wondering who I am. It's gotta be like, obviously it's either your classmate, Sam Smith, or the actress Samantha Gray. Like, or why would they be wondering? I'm sure you are all wondering who I am. If I were you, I wouldn't recognize me either. After all, the last time I was here, I was a nerd that skimmed the edge of the crowd in my brother's shadow. But now he's gone, and here I stand alone. Now, you may not believe me, but I'm here to tell you that I am Sam Smith. Chris Smith was my big brother, and he just recently died of cancer. Oh no. Okay, so Chris accounts for both the cancer and death tags on this story. But I'm someone else too. I am Samantha Gray. The crowd was silent for a heartbeat, and then the whole crowd rushed at me. At first I thought that what I had feared had come true, but then I heard their word. Why didn't you just tell us before? One girl asked as she hugged me and told me how sorry she was that Chris died. I'm so sorry that we were all so cruel to you. So kind of what she was worried about did happen. Like, now everybody is just like being fake nice to her because she's famous. I found it funny that they were able to make my life horrible before they knew who I was famous, but as soon as they found out who I was, they went out of their way to be nice to me. Yeah, that's what I said. There were only 2 people in this entire school that had been nice to me before. One was moving to New York, and the other probably hated me, but I was still going to find them and make things right. I wonder which one is which, because she's clearly talking about Will and Chase, right? But I don't know which one is moving to New York and which one probably hates her. I politely excused myself from the crowd of suck-ups and made my way toward the entrance of the building. It was funny getting stopped at the front office and asked if I needed a visitor's pass. I know it's like the Clark Kent thing, but like really, like putting her hair up in a ponytail and putting glasses on was enough to make her completely look like a different person. After I calmly explained that I went to school there and told them my situation, they decided to let me go with a confused expression. Imagine having that conversation with like the front office at your high school. I gently set my bag inside my locker and stooped to retrieve the paper. It was a note from Will. Dear Sam, it read, I know that you will come back to school sooner or later, and when you find this, hopefully you will be able to forgive me for leaving you. By now I will be boarding a plane for New York. Okay, so he's the one going to New York, with no intentions to come back for a very long time. I only wished that I could have told you in person how much you meant to me for these past 4 years. You were my hope and my light through all the days of bullying. I had no idea at the time how a seemingly normal girl could keep her head so high through everything. Of course I knew as soon as I figured out that you were Samantha Gray that your life really wasn't bad at all. Wow. But I still viewed you as my best friend. Maybe if we ever meet again, we could be friends again. But I need to go now. As soon as you tell everyone who you are, things are going to change for you, and for the entire school. I just hope you are ready. I will miss you, Will. He leaves her a note that says, without heart, we'd all fall apart. Will was leaving today? I had banked on having a week to possibly make up with him. I knew our relationship was toast, but our friendship could have still been rekindled. Okay, so she must have briefly dated Will in this story. By now, most of the student body was in class, but I knew Chase would be outside somewhere blowing off steam. What's he doing, lifting weights outside the school? I burst into the early morning light. The trees were always green, but I felt a slight coolness in the breeze that told me fall was approaching. Like I had predicted, Chase was sitting under a tree looking... Wait, what time of year is it then? If fall is approaching... Whatever. Like I had predicted, Chase was sitting under a tree looking up into the branches, so he's blowing off steam by sitting under a tree. So she goes up to Chase, he asks if her announcement went well, and she says, I guess so, but now everyone is sucking up to me like nobody's business. You and Will are the only ones who treated me right to begin with. My voice was soft and distant. I was afraid to look up because I thought Chase would get up and leave me alone. I was so tired of being left. I'm sorry, Chase blurted. He sounded so raw, so full of emotions that it surprised me. Chase was never one for serious emotions, but here he was trying to make amends just like I was. I'm sorry too, Chase. We didn't need to say anything else. All I did was throw my arms around his neck and bury my face in his shoulder. He stroked my hair, but didn't whisper anything to me. Now we just needed to make up and move on. Okay, that wasn't really a conclusion, but Maybe something happens in the epilogue. Okay, I read the epilogue. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. It's only like 2 paragraphs, but basically what happens in the epilogue is she's like, she and Chase are inseparable now, but in a best friend sort of way, not as boyfriend-girlfriend. So I don't really know what the point of this romance story was. But then it says she's going to New York to like be in her first big movie. It says it's going to kickstart her career. So she goes onto set. She somehow doesn't know who she's co-starring with yet, even though it's the first day of shooting. But she's there on set, and her co-star is Will. He went to New York to become an actor. Good for him. Yeah, that was pretty solid. I really enjoyed that we got that father twist with Mike. That was very, like I said, that's what I was looking for. Just a crazy thing that comes out of nowhere because we're skipping all those chapters. But like I said, it was actually pretty competently written, so I feel like it wasn't that laugh out loud funny. I'm hoping we might get a better result with this next one. It's called Devil for a Husband by Mercy198. Let's read the plot synopsis. Ooh, highest ranking, first in romance on May 23rd, 2018. Blaze Norman. I didn't really say this with the last one, but it cracks me up so much, the names that people use in their Wattpad stories, because I feel like they're just always like this, especially the boys. It's always, Blaze Norman, or like Zaid Cratchit. That one, maybe not that one. Blaze Norman, a cold and ruthless CEO of Norman Enterprises, has decided to take Caden Carter as his bride. Not even the heavens was going to stop him. Blaze Norman is the cold, ruthless, and industrious CEO of the multi-billion Norman Enterprises. It doesn't say multi-billion dollar, it's just like multi-billion Norman Enterprises. He has multiple billions of enterprises. He's meticulous and calculative with his every step, the type to pay back what has been given to him. When he's informed that the debt of a lesser company owes has somehow strained the financial status of his even by the lowest percent, he's offered with the oldest alternative: make the debtor's oldest daughter his bride and stand the first in line to claim all their properties. Classic. I feel like there are a lot of stories like this where it's like arranged marriage for rich people for some reason. Unfortunately for him, the young bride-to-be is not as submissive as he would like. In fact, she's the opposite of what you might call the perfect wife. Soon they're tying the knot, followed by a series of comic events that escalates towards finding love and comfort in each other faster than the two ever expected. You know what? That's more wholesome than I was expecting. I feel like a lot of these stories are just like kind of dark, like nasty, I don't know. So chapter 1 is called A Vague Start. I appreciate the honesty. Now, we have a pretty long author's note beginning this. Let's read that. You opened this book. A big thank you. You're welcome. I know there are a lot of cliché billionaire arranged marriage books on Wattpad. Why should this book be any different? Well, I don't know what to tell you because I believe nothing I say would be convincing enough, so I can only hope you give this book a try and find out for yourself. Okay, I have a little confidence, girl. DFH had initially been published in 2015, but now edited in 2020, so a few scenes might seem different to previous readers. Overall, I tried my best to incorporate them and try to make this free of error and more lifelike. I'm from a country that speaks English as a generalized language, but we have several tribal languages, so English is also kind of not my first language. I can only hope I'm able to achieve my goal of free grammatical error reading. DFH is dedicated to all those who believe true love is something special and not a feeling we jump right into. This is not a mature content book. Do not read if you expect to see a chapter or chapters with explicit lovemaking scenes. Please later do not comment you've been robbed. Interesting. So this is not like a smutty book, which I think a lot of these types of books are. That's interesting. Let's see what the comments have to say about that, actually. Perfect. Reading about intercourse is boring. You might be on the wrong website, girl. Finally, an arranged marriage romance book that doesn't include mature content. I'm more than ready to read it after finishing the 2 books in my library. We have a bunch of people, on the other hand, who are saying, like, bye, like they're leaving the story because it's not smutty. All right, let's do this. He stepped into the boardroom with a man and woman in tow. The formal wear mixed with the serious attitude created an official feeling. The people who were already in the luxurious room stood up in greeting as a sign of acknowledging his presence. After taking a look at the bunch of people before him, he sat down in his spot, signaling everyone to follow suit. No one dared speak. He opened a file right away. Without looking up, he gave a cue to a young man for the presentation to begin. The goal of our new store will be to sell shoes at a lower price so that our customers... He was cut short by a cold remark. You mean to tell me you want to lower our profit margin? He rolled his eyes as he went through the file. Sir, I'm not necessarily saying this company is built off of integrity and quality. My father did not build this company for it to simply be mediocre. If there is not a better pitch by Tuesday at noon, you'll be fired, he boomed, the room suddenly feeling ice cold. I'm imagining all these men looking like the Monopoly man, you know? I love this thing. I feel like I've talked about this before, when sometimes in fiction, when like you can tell the writer didn't really know much about business or care that much about business, but they're depicting like a business setting, the way they'll have characters talk about business, I find really funny. It'll just be all this vague stuff like, oh yeah, the files and the meeting, and like, don't forget about the meeting and the emails. Although, you know, this chapter is called A Vague Start. So maybe it's on purpose. But may I finish? The unfortunate boy trailed off as his boss got up and had already begun to leave the room without a bit of emotion across his face. His assistants who had followed him walked out with him as well, boredom plaguing their faces. Who is he to treat people that way? Who does he think he is? He cried in exasperation. The woman in red piped up. He's Blaze Norman, the CEO and president of these department stores. These department stores, you know. Some of the top in the world, you know. He owns this company. Did the guy in the meeting not know that he was talking to Blaze Norman, the CEO? Oh, he answers it in the next sentence. Yes, I know. It was a rhetorical question, he irritably commented, picked up his files, and stormed out of the room. Paragraph break. He sat in his shiny black office chair, his timeline for the upcoming month, as two men walked through the entrance. They're posing as a threat? Since when has this company grown big enough to possibly get close to hurting us? Blaze questioned them with ferocity. Blaze stood up from his seat and got in front of the two men. So, are you telling me this whole time you have found this predicament entirely too unimportant to report to me, yet according to these charts, our sales have decreased by a whopping 20%? The men were caught off guard, not expecting to be asked all of the questions at once. Silence filled the room, darkening it like a cloud. Well, sir, that's not really the source of the problem. Actually, sir, when your father was the active CEO and residing president, he loaned about $10 million. He was best friends with Carter of the Carter stores. Is Carter of the Carter stores, is his first name Carter? And loaned the money to them after a project had failed. It was originally $5 million, but they continually asked for more after asking for more and more. Then eventually your father passed away. But that money is what has been restricting our advertising and growth budget. Okay, the summary said it was a multi-billion enterprise. I assume they meant multi-billion-dollar enterprise. But $10 million is like what's restricting their advertising and growth budget. Like, I feel like if this is like actually one of the biggest department stores in the world, if it's like Macy's or something, I feel like $10 million is really not that much to them. As the story unfolded, it caused Blaze to stop and think, how come he had never been aware of this? Carter owes us $10 million and they've paid none of it back? My father was lenient with people. Mr. James, start a brief overview on this case, written and get it to me as soon as possible. I'll need some time to think on where to start with this case, he requested. Mr. James responded with a curt nod. Although Mr. James was older than Blaze, Blaze being in his late 20s and he was in his early 40s, Mr. James had grown to respect his boss on many levels. Him, moderate in height. He had gray streaks in his brown hair which matched his eyes perfectly. The wrinkles around his eyes showed signs of stress and hard work. Together, the men got ready to take on a new task. That was an interesting physical description of an older man. Mr. James, Blaze called after him, you've been working at this company for the last 10 years. You probably know more about what happened with my father and Carter than anyone. I'd like you to give your input and ideas on how to handle this. Yes, sir, of course, responded Mr. James politely. Now I'm getting like butler vibes from him. A knock on the door broke him out of his working haze. his working Blaze Hayes. "Come in," Blaze spoke up. A young woman around her late 20s walked in, her straight chocolate hair blowing behind her as she stepped. She was fair in complexion and was dressed in a professional black pencil skirt and a sky blue chiffon blouse. Okay, with so much description of her, I feel like she's gonna be a character later. "I'm sorry for the disturbance, sir, but you have a function that you must attend this evening and you have to get going." "Okay, please get the driver and car in place," he told her, responding with a nod before she left the office. Soon after, he left for his home to change into something suiting the occasion. Okay, that's the end of chapter 1. We haven't really introduced the romance yet. It's kind of just setting the office scene. I'm kind of getting like 50 Shades of Grey, like, you know, he's a really tough, rich, billionaire businessman. It says this was published, oh yeah, she said she wrote it in 2015, so that would kind of be around that time. Let's go ahead and skip to, wow, chapter 60, A Bun in the Oven. That's the title of this chapter. I wonder what's gonna happen. I also just remembered that thing on Degrassi where when Emma goes to college and smokes weed for the first time, they nickname her Blaze, so that's what I'm thinking about.
Blaze!
Yeah, Blaze. Nice!
Okay, we have a little thing at the beginning of the chapter that says, 30 minutes before Blaze received Leslie's call. Blaze. This is from Blaze's perspective. "I took hold of the doorknob, but in the sparse of the moment my will faltered and I froze. As I looked away, I ran a hand through my hair. I can do this, I assured myself and made a complete turn back to the door. I simply had to push down on the knob, but I was having a difficult time with that. I stalled on several reasons. Kaden trusts me. She hadn't pressured me in any way, but I knew what she expected of me. I could see it in her eyes. The only way to get over the past is to face it head on. So true. It's a part of me I'll never be able to ignore. Strangely strong-willed, I stopped thinking for a moment and pushed the door open. There she laid on the bed without making a move. Is she asleep? I wondered and thought about turning back, but her head turned to me and her eyes met mine. I saw the slight surprise on her face, accompanied by remorse, so for a second I looked away but eventually made my way further in. So I started, I guess you believe it's okay to show up the way you did. Blaze, she called, her voice faint and yet filled with pain. One glance at her and I shifted my eyes to anywhere else but her. I don't even want to know what or where you've been all these years. If you left me behind, you should have lived a long and fulfilling life, but you selfishly had to come back into my life just when I decided to live. Wait, so is this the love interest? Did she, leave him? I'm sorry, she apologized, and I couldn't help shifting my eyes back on her. I watched as the tears trickled down her cheeks. Sorry, it's not funny. And I felt my heart burn. I felt upset. A scoff left my lips as I lowered my eyes. What exactly are you sorry for? Leaving me behind or pretending I didn't exist all these years? Perhaps, is it because you show up terminally ill? Oh no, she's terminally ill. Let me guess, you want to rectify your mistakes so you can die a peaceful death. A light chuckle left my lips as I take in the words I just spoke. As funny as it sounds, I couldn't deny the fact that I was hurt by it. I'm sorry, I believed leaving you with your father was the best idea for your future. Okay, this is his estranged mother, it's not the girlfriend. That would have been crazy. The best? I was 6 years old. I needed my mother by my side. Fine, you left, but do you have an excuse for never paying a visit? I did. I tried, but your father wouldn't let me. He was adamant as to if I leave, I'll never get to see you again. But you left anyways. I had to. He was a monster. Okay, classic. All these abusive men in Wattpad stories, they always are abusive because they have, a messed up home life. You know, they, have mommy and daddy issues, usually. Yet you left me in his care. What kind of a mother are you? By this time, I couldn't stop the tears as they trickled down my cheeks. Using a hand, I covered my face, lowering my eyes away from her. Wow, this is what I wanted. This is very dramatic. Okay, he's sad. The mom apologizes, basically. Unable to stop, I cried my eyes out. The moment I stepped out of the room, shutting the door behind me, my phone rang. One look at the caller ID, and I knew it was Kaden. I cleared my throat, already dried my eyes and face before answering the call and bringing the phone close to my ear. Cade, the voice on the other side interrupted whatever I had to say. Leslie's words left me surprised, and before I could say anything, she cut the call. For a moment, I panicked. She was holding Kaden hostage, and I couldn't call an outsider for help. Without wasting a second more, I hurried on my way. So, I like how instead of showing us that conversation, we just get to hear him summarize it for us. Okay, Kaden's POV. I glanced at Leslie, who now sat opposite me, her gun still pointed at me and her gaze never leaving me. Again, this is a lot. This is dramatic. This is fun. What's your grand plan? To shoot us both? I queried, but she snorted at my words. You'd love that, wouldn't you? Sorry, love. I'm not here to let you two be together, even in death. So you'll kill me? She narrowed het eyes at me, a grin formed by the side of her face. Patience is virtue. You'll come to know soon when Blaze gets here. Soon, silence settled in our midst once more. The longer I stared at her, the more I thought about getting out of this situation in one piece. Why are you doing this? Isn't it obvious? I'm upset. Yeah, she does seem upset. I've gone through so much to be back here, to be Blaze's equal in status, but because of you, our love story was cut short. Okay, it's the jealous ex, classic. Perhaps it was never meant to be. A light laughter left her lips. I don't believe in destined soulmate story. I believe we're responsible for our own fate, and that's what I'm doing. I'm making decisions for myself. You're smart, beautiful, and wealthy. There are so many men lined up to be with you. Neither of them is Blaze. He's the only one I ever truly loved. We heard the sound of engine from outside. She smiled at me. He's here. I furrowed my brows at her insanity. Soon, Blaze was within the house and walked right into the living room where we sat. Okay, so Blaze is there. They, argue over him not loving her anymore, the drill. Fine, you have my attention. What do you want? I've told you several times already. I want your love. I love you, Blaze. Good. While my eyes never left her, silently I got up from my seat. Okay, so yeah, this is Caden talking. I tiptoed away. For a second, I stood looking around for anything to use as a weapon. Finally, I caught sight of it and carefully made my steps behind her. I watched as he let out a sigh. Look, once upon a time you had a special place in my heart, but it's different now. You need to move on. I don't think I can do that, but there is something I can do. I can get rid of who comes in between us, starting with her. She turned with the gun pointed directly at where I'd earlier taken my seat. Where's she? She queried, and my grip on the vase in my hand tightened. The moment she turned back, I slammed the vase over her head, breaking it to pieces, and she dropped to the ground unconscious. This is so Lifetime. Like, this would happen in every Lifetime movie. What? She had to be stopped, I defended, and watched as he bent to check her pulse. He looked up at me. She's alive. Of course she is. Why would I kill her? I added, a little pissed that he ever thought I would commit murder. He stood straight once more. Steadily, a smile curled up on his face. I couldn't stop myself from smiling back and eventually heaved a sigh of relief. The worst mistake anyone could make was underestimate me. Blaze came closer and engulfed me in a warm hug. Okay, maybe call the police now, but And I guess that's the end of kind of the action, because we get a little thing saying 1 year later, and we're back to Blaze's perspective. I left a bouquet of flowers by the side of her tombstone. Taking a step back, I felt a hand slid around my arm and one looked to the side. I smiled at the sight of my smiling wife. I returned my gaze to the tombstone, which had my mother's name engraved on it. Okay, she died. In her last days, we weren't the perfect mother and son, but I learned to give her a chance. Finally, I was able to forgive her. Good for them. Do you think she's happy wherever she is? I had to ask. I believe she died a happy woman, so she can't be sad in the afterlife. I guess that's a good way to look at it. I shifted my eyes to her, grateful for her presence in my life. I love you. I said what I should have said more often. Her smile brightened. I have something to tell you. I don't know if there is a right time to tell you this, but your mom is here and she deserves to know as well, so... She started as her smile softened. I watched as she let go of my arm. Taking a step back, she took off her coat and made a turn so her back was all I could view of her. I watched her brush her hair forward with her hands, and I couldn't help but stare blankly, not quite knowing what she was trying to do. She took a look at me past her shoulder. Have you read it? Read what? The writing on the back of my shirt. How did he not notice that there was writing on the back of her shirt? As she looked away, I read through. There's a bun in the oven, I read out, and yet I couldn't understand why she wanted me to read that. She turned to me with a shy smile. And? She queried with a tinge of curiosity in her eyes. I furrowed my brows at her. And? I repeated. Her smile dropped. You don't understand, do you? Gradually, I shook my head. I watched as she let out a sigh before making her way closer to me. She took my hands in hers and curled up, a warm smile on her face. I'm pregnant. We're going to be parents, she stated, but for the first few seconds, my expression remained the same, blank. I blinked several times as I stood straight. Parents? She nodded intensely, patiently awaiting the expected reaction, but I was rather processing the information slowly. Yeah, tell me about it. Aren't you happy? We are going to be parents? I exclaimed a little louder the moment I grasped the situation. Her smile broadened and she nodded a little violently. Yes, she replied, and I engulfed her in a hug. Okay, he's gonna be a father, he's happy, whatever. Steadily, my smile was back. She was right. Together, we can do anything, and we are going to make a future that's filled with love and happy memories. Together, we are one, the end. Wait a minute. So she like, she put a sign on her back that said, there's a bun in the oven. Like, you know, a Pinterest kind of thing, cute, like, pregnancy reveal. And her husband, this, like, multi-billion-dollar CEO guy, was so stupid or so, like, slow on the uptake or not familiar with common euphemisms that he didn't even understand what she was trying to say. No hate to anyone who didn't know the euphemism bun in the oven, but, like, it's hard for me to believe that this guy, this, like, billionaire businessman has never heard that before in his life. That was pretty good. I feel like we got, you know, interestingly, a very short introductory chapter. We didn't even meet the love interest initially. And then we got an extremely dramatic final chapter. A lot of things happened. Kind of the mom dying thing, and then the Lifetime movie, like, evil girlfriend thing. That was great. Yeah, I would give that one 10 out of 10. Whatever. This has 43.5 million reads. Wow. Okay, next up is a real treat. This is a story I found a while ago. It's called My Best Friend's Cousin by Stacy Taylor 86. This one I was kind of intrigued by the cover, well, by the title, first off, and then also by the cover, because it's just like this picture of what looks like kind of a hipster-looking guy. I'm curious what year this was written. Last updated March 2018, so not that old. Let's read the summary. Faye works at a bookstore and is sweet, curvy, and overall a great person who happens to also be best friends with a woman named Lucy who happens to work across the street at a makeup store. Faye's new apartment managers have recently upped the rent to a ridiculous amount that Faye can't afford. When Lucy finds this out, she offers her a place to stay. However, she doesn't mention that she lives with her boyfriend who also happens to work for her cousin, Zeke. There's a lot of people happening to do things. Zeke is a feared and well-respected and ruthless gang leader and believed in showing no mercy or softness towards anyone. When he finds out that after telling Lucy no one else could move in, even though they had a spare bedroom, Lucy ends up doing it anyways. If there's one thing you couldn't do with Zeke, is you never disobey or go against him. Okay. Chapter 1, Just Another Day. Okay, Faye's perspective. After taking a shower and getting ready for work, I made some cereal and made my lunch for the day. I work at a really popular bookstore, and my discounts are awesome. The pay isn't bad, but also the benefits are really good. Damn, benefits? Working at a bookstore? Good for her. While getting ready, I heard a knock at my door. I walk up and ask, "Who is it?" "It's Robert," he says, sounding like an asshole, as he always does. Okay, let me do that again. How do you say "it's Robert" and sound like an asshole? "It's Robert." He's the new building manager that took over this place a couple weeks ago and has not made any attempt to really introduce himself. Then how does she know he's an asshole? I take in a breath and let it out before I open the door and brace myself for what he's about to tell me, because he always has something stupid to say to everyone. "Yeah?" I say. "Here, I'm going around giving everyone this," he says as he hands me an envelope. "What is it?" I asked while opening it up. "It's a notice so that everyone knows the rent will be going up," he states. "What? To how much?" I asked, and then stopped myself when I saw how much he was raising it. "You're raising it to $1,200 a month? No one here can pay that. Besides, these apartments aren't even worth that much," I protest. "Well, that is why I am remodeling this entire building and fixing it up, and it will be well worth the price, and whoever can afford it can stay," he smiles. "Have a great day, miss," he says, and then walks downstairs. I can hardly pay rent as it is right now, let alone $300 more. This is ridiculous. Nobody here can afford it. Okay, so her rent before this was like $900. On the one hand, I'm tempted to say that depending on the city she lives in, $1,200 isn't that bad for a studio apartment. On the other, solidarity, I am with her. I think rent should be cheaper, and probably he's raising it to more than the apartment is worth. Shit, I thought as I began thinking about where in the hell I was going to stay at now, I had nowhere else to go. This was just the news I needed right before my 24th birthday that was in a couple of weeks. Damn it, and now I have to go to work, which I guess now on my lunch break I will need to start looking at places. Paragraph break. So she's thinking about moving in someplace else. She has her lunch break and she meets up with her friend Lucy. Lucy is a beautiful, retro, pin-up-looking girl and was really skinny and was one of those who could eat whatever and it never affect her. I'm sick of this stuff in fiction. It's like this whole thing of, I don't know. I guess I just didn't really want to hear about any of that in this story. Whatever. I'm going to skip over most of it. Basically, Lucy gets a burger and our main character, whatever her name is, gets like a salad and they have some annoying talk back and forth about like, how can you eat whatever you want and never gain any weight? And it's like, stop. Well, I only have time anyways for a salad and then I actually need to head back, I tell her. Why? She asks. Because I just need to finish up a few things and I want to make sure they're done before I leave. I lie. Okay, she replies, not entirely convinced. Well, since tomorrow's Friday, I wanted to see if you would like to go out with me and Evan. Evan is Lucy's boyfriend, apparently. I'm okay, thanks. I have a few things I need to do this weekend and might need to work Beth's shift. I lie again. Okay, well, if you change your mind, let me know, she replies. I nod before taking a few more bites and then look down at my phone and see that I needed to head back into work. Thanks, and I will let you know if I do, but right now I have to get back to work, I tell her. All right, hit me up later, she says as I begin walking back towards work. I get it, she's going back to work. I hate lying to her, but I feel really embarrassed, and also I don't want her to feel bad, so I decide to just figure it out on my own. Technically, I still have 15 minutes left for my half-an-hour lunch break, which gives me enough time to look at some places on the internet. Which, even in 15 minutes, I couldn't find anything and found that it would be much cheaper to stay in one of the hotels that is decent, not far from my work, and at a price I can afford. Okay, there is no way that it would be cheaper to stay in any hotel. This was going to be really hard, but I have been through worst times, seeing as to how I've been on my own since I was 16 and was kicked out of the house, which that's a story for another time, and the only one I had ever told was Lucy. So as much as it sucks right now, I'm hoping that I can find a place soon. Fingers crossed. Okay, next chapter will be posted soon, says the author. That's the end of chapter 1. Pretty good. It's like not crazy funny, but there are little things that get to me, like at the beginning when she's just like ragging on this guy, Robert, some of the back and forth between her and her friend. I'm excited to read the last chapter. I think this could be good, given that we have all this like gang stuff that we haven't even seen in the story yet, so I assume it'll be pretty dramatic. Okay, chapter 19. Is it finally over? That's my question. Phase POV. I stood there frozen in fear as I saw both of my parents whom I had thought or had hoped were dead, but clearly weren't. Okay. Hi, Faye, my dad says to me. Is her dad also Mike, the agent? What are you doing here? I stuttered. We've missed you. We have been searching many years for you, he exclaims. What do you want? I asked. We've come to see how grown up you've become, he smiles. No, you didn't. Neither one of you had cared about me since I was born, let alone now, so don't play the card with me. I tell them. My parents both laughed at me. Oh my gosh, they're laughing at her? Oh, sweetie, still as cute as ever, my mom said, overly nice as usual. This is funny. It's like they show up unannounced after presumably having been out of her life for many years, and they're just like, oh, shut up, like, stop overreacting. We're just happy to see you. Like, guys, read the room a little bit. All right, that's enough chit-chat. Let's get this thing going, and you can all talk while I address everyone, Owen says. Who's Owen? I roll my eyes and kind of back up closer to one of Owen's guys, as I would definitely trust them more than my parents. Wow, that says a lot. Owen's guys, really. As we were escorted towards the back of the stage, and as Owen began talking to everyone, I felt like a farm animal that stood in line at the slaughterhouse to be killed. Okay, they're on some sort of stage. I'm really curious to know what's going on. I began also feeling like a coward as I saw several young girls go in front of me and onto the stage and be auctioned off. Oh my gosh, are we at a human auction? Is this like some sort of trafficking thing? I should do something, I know, but what? Then I felt the guys that had been by my side ever since they took me out of the basement and threw me into that one room at the house where I had to get ready. I felt them pull on my arm and began pulling me up onto the stage and walk up to Owen. As soon as I got there and he announced I was going to be bought, I was shocked and surprised and tried to scream out no, but I couldn't. Wow, okay, so yeah, they are trafficking humans. The guy that still was holding my arm, he squeezed it really tight to make sure I didn't say or do anything. Then the next thing I hear is a bid, though finally it came down to 2 men, and then I heard the auction guy hit his gavel down at the platform he stood behind and said the word I had dreaded the past couple of days of hearing, sold. I was then You know what I would love is if then it like cut to the guys who bought her and it's the band One Direction. I was then pulled off the stage and taken into a big room along with Owen, a few of his men, and my parents. All right, bring them in, Owen tells his guy on the phone. You're gonna love this, he says to me with a creepy grin. The door opens up and in walks one of Owen's guys and the two men that look slightly familiar, but I can't tell. Hello, Zeke, Owen says. Wait, Zeke is the love interest, right? Okay, apparently the narrator is also confused because she says, really? He's alive? Wait, why did he wait so long to come and get me? Wait a minute, why am I questioning him? I'm sure he has his reasons, and besides, he's here now. Okay, I guess we're gonna forgive him for whatever kept him from coming to rescue you from human traffickers. Both Zeke and Evan remove their masks while one of Owen's guys points a gun at Zeke and Evan's head. Zeke quickly makes eye contact with mine as I begin removing my eye mask without taking my eyes off his. I knew you'd come tonight, Owen says to Zeke. Let her go, Zeke says. Not until you give me what I have rightfully earned, Owen reminds me. And I told you, hell no, Zeke tells him. Owen starts laughing, and so does everyone else. That's kind of funny. That's too bad, Owen grins at Zeke, and with a nod from him to his guys, the guy cocks his gun and points it at me. No, wait, Zeke yells out. Owen looks at him grinning. Yes, he asks. Don't, Evan says to Zeke while his gun is pointing at Owen, so they're all like just pointing guns at each other at the same time. Zeke looks over at Owen for a moment and then over at me, which has me confused and scared at the same time. Then he looks back at Owen, and what he says next makes me want to cry, because I know that he loves his gang and would do anything for them, but never did I expect to hear him say what he said. Zeke's POV. I had a choice to make, and though my guys might not understand, I took in a breath and just did it anyways, as I knew this was the only way I could get her back. I will give you all of my clients, but not my guys and not my reputation, I tell him. What, clients? Is this a gang with clients? Everyone in the room is surprised and all in shock, looking at me as though they can't believe what I just said. However, they don't know what it's like to feel this way about someone. I literally will do whatever it takes to get Faye back and to not have her killed or hurt. So if this is the way it has to be, then so be it. Sure, I'm risking losing everything, but without her, I am and have nothing. All right, deal, Owen says. Where do I sign? I ask him because I knew he has some sort of contract. Right this way, Owen says as I start to follow him into another room. As I walk past Evan, I give him a look that he knows what it means. Once I'm in the small office next door to the room we were all just in, I walk up to his desk, and right as soon as he hands me the pen, I take it and stab him right in the middle of his hand, making him yell out in pain and holds his hand. Motherfucker, he yells. I quickly take that opportunity to grab him by the collar and drag him over the desk and start to punch him, and I keep him down on the ground as I beat him. Okay, so they're like having a physical fight. Meanwhile, as me and him are fighting, gunshots start going off, and they're screaming along with yelling also. So yeah, this gang meeting has erupted into chaos. Who could have predicted that? Finally, I take the knife I had strapped to the bottom of my leg and grab him, turn him to where I have his back against me as I have my knife to his throat, and I tell, with blood dripping from our faces, for him to walk. Okay, so they go back into the room where everybody else was, where we see bodies on the floor. Most of them were his guys, while I looked and saw Evan and the rest of my guys standing there, pointing at their guns at the rest of Owen's men. Then I look around for Faye. I see her standing over her now parents' dead bodies while still pointing a gun at them. Oh my gosh. So presumably within the space of this one chapter, Faye's long-lost parents came back and saw her again for the first time in years, and now they're just dead already, and they died off screen. Owen sees her and her dead parents and tries struggling free from my grasp, but my grip gets tighter and I end up just barely drawing blood. You fucking bitch, Owen says. That was the last thing he said, as I was originally thinking about torturing him and watching him as he dies a slow and painful death, but instead of that remark, I just slit his throat. Okay, sorry for all the, violence in this one. I didn't realize it would be so graphic, but that was funny. He decided to not torture him and watch him die a slow, painful death just because he swore a little bit, I guess. Okay, so Owen is dead. That's the end of Owen. I walk over next to Faye and notice that she is still in a lot of shock as she is still staring at her parents' bodies and is holding the gun shaking. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that she's in shock. Wait, did she kill her parents? Is that the implication? "Baby," I say in a quiet voice. She looks at me surprised, yet with tears, and looks as though she's still in shock. Yeah, I think she probably is. She wraps her arms tightly around my neck as I wrap mine around her waist, and it feels so good to hold her again. "I thought I lost you," she cries as I cup her head and have her look at me. "Never. I will always come back for you, my love," I tell her. She nods in agreement, and we begin kissing. There's an epilogue, but that's it. That was like our final action chapter. I mean, that one might have been the funniest so far to me. I don't know why, because it wasn't really, it's just, maybe it's like the fact that we had such a shift in tone. Like, the first chapter is kind of just, two girls, like, meeting up over lunch and talking about whatever, all this stuff. And then the last chapter is, like, her estranged parents getting gunned down by a gang. There's, like, a human trafficking auction. The guy gets his throat slit by our main love interest. The main girl possibly killed her parents. It's kind of hard to tell. And I have to say, I still don't know what the cover was about. Like, is that supposed to be Zeke? Because that kind of makes the whole thing way funnier to me if he looks like that. He looks like a barista at a high-end coffee shop. I think I'll stop there. I've been filming for a while. This was interesting. I think we did get a good kind of selection of works, a good variety. We had the classic kind of high school romance, the sold to a billionaire / arranged marriage to a billionaire story, and the gangster story. And those are like 3 distinct, really popular Wattpad genres. I think this is a fun thing to do. Like, if you're on Wattpad just looking for a laugh, I think this is a fun way to consume these books without having to actually waste like hours and hours reading the entire thing. Let me know if you enjoyed this as a format, because there are a bazillion more books I could read if I ever wanted to do another video like this. If you're not already subscribed, please do. And if you don't, I will send my billionaire, gangster, high school, quarterback, popular, undercover boyfriend after you. And you wouldn't like him when he's angry.